Hi, everyone, and welcome to Co Blueprint. I'm Jeanette Mulvey, the content director of Co from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and I'm so glad you joined us today. We know this is a really challenging year for small businesses in so many ways, and we created this whole series to help you rebuild your business safely and come out of this on the other side in 2021 stronger and better than ever. So in each episode, I invite small business owners and experts to join us to help you figure out how to do just that. And today I'm going to introduce you to our panel shortly, but just a few housekeeping notes first. We will be taking a couple of polls throughout the event because we want to hear from you about what's happening at your business. You can fill those out anytime during the program, and I will reveal the results later. We will also be taking your questions for our panelists later in the event, so you can type those in the panel on the right-hand side of your screen at any point. And if you see that someone else has asked a question that you like, please click the thumbs up button to upvote it and move it higher on the list. And I would like to thank our sponsors. I would like to thank our presenting sponsor, Chase for Business, as well as our supporting sponsors, FedEx, MetLife, Oracle NetSuite, Salesforce, and Square. So without further ado, I would like to welcome today's small business expert, Matthew Rhodus, Senior Director of Strategic Initiatives at Oracle NetSuite. Hi, Matthew.
Hi, how are you? Good afternoon and good morning. For those that are still morning time.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. So we're here today to talk about e-commerce. I'm sure that's your entire life right now.
Pretty much.
You know, during the pandemic, we've seen a huge shift towards e-commerce from businesses of all kinds, not just the kinds that you would normally think of as e-commerce retailers. So can you just talk about that, what you're seeing in terms of that kind of shift and what has your customers moving in that direction?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I appreciate that here because I think it's really important to have an understanding of grounding yourself in where are you starting from? What is your starting point when you're talking about the evolution to e-commerce? You know, the position that I'm in, I get the opportunity to speak to, dozens and hundreds of businesses, just like, all of you, every week and month and every year. So important for us to start to ascertain, well, what is the starting point that your business is coming from in that transition to e-commerce? And generally we see one of three. And that is, you are traditionally a more B2B or wholesale oriented business that, you found yourself in a situation where you now need to reach out and interact with the customer directly. The second is you are a retailer that, has not necessarily played a lot online because either you didn't think you needed to, or it just wasn't a focus for your business. And obviously you found yourself in a position where that was no longer anything you could ignore. And then the third category of people, which is the people that have spent some time and energy on e-commerce, it maybe just isn't necessarily, their core focus, or, they're needing to now embrace a lot of these new business models like curbside pickup, buy online, pickup in store, and more kind of advanced, I'll call them, business operations that were really not part of their organization. So kind of recognizing where you are, your maturity curve as an organization and the business that you have, and then trying to evaluate from there what are the next best steps to take, because they are not generally the same. So from there, the answers kind of get a little more nuanced.
Sure. Thank you so much. So since the kinds of businesses we're talking about and their starting point are so disparate, right? There's obviously not one playbook for all businesses. But if you just pick sort of three top most important things for small businesses to think about when they're adopting e-commerce, or expanding.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what those three things would be?
Yeah, and they're very important and obvious as what the three that you need to focus on. The first and the most critical is visibility. E-commerce is a very transparent forcing function to your organization, where you now need to make available pieces of information that maybe you aren't as competent in, or feel like you understand kind of what those pieces of information are, where they exist. So visibility has to be the first thing that you look at. And if you do not have visibility, to inventory, to cash flows, to supply chain, that has to be corrected, because like I said, once you go online and you start to put more and more online, it's a very transparent forcing function for any organization. The next, I would say, is kind of kicking off that visibility, is really starting to examine and taking a look at your supply chain, and then understanding that there are two sides to your supply chain. There is both the inbound supply chain and how you are acquiring goods, and what optimizations can be could be made there, and there's plenty that can be. And then also the outbound supply chain and how you are meeting the standards that consumers are used to agreeing to. I think this year a lot of businesses have gotten a bit of a pass, obviously, as far as being able to meet day or 2-day shipping requirements. So the good news is, this is a really good time to experiment with these types of things, because the consumer is a lot more forgiving today than they were this time last year. And then the third is really looking at content. And so e-commerce and online, and tying in social media and marketing campaigns off of that digital experience, it's all about content. So it can be a very different prospect as you are merging yourself into a more e-commerce driven business, and really looking at your content strategies, looking at how you're developing your content, who's developing it for you, and really strengthening your reach in the realms of content. So those would be the three.
Great. So I want to talk to you about inventory, but I want to go back to something you just said, which I think you said customers are more understanding right now than in the past. Is that what you said?
I did. If you kind of think about, in your own world, right? Many of us it's taken, 4 or 5 times as long to get that Amazon package than we were used to in the past. I think we all kind of have this understanding that, supply is strained. So the consumer is more forgiving now. If something does not arrive next day or 2 days later, it doesn't have the same reaction that it did a year ago. As I was doing panels and talking last year, I would have been driving home how critical and how important it is meeting those very rigid timelines that consumers have today about free shipping and expedited shipping. But it's a very different world, and so this is a very good time to sort of experiment a little bit, because consumers are more adjusted to and forgiving towards it might take an extra day or so for your package to arrive.
Yeah, we have a small business owner on the panel that I'll introduce later, who I bet is backstage nodding her head right now, because I know she's been experiencing this. Let's talk about inventory. So if you are scaling your business to be more of an e-commerce operation, I think that obviously has inventory implications, because it's not about what is just in your location now. So can you just talk about that, how businesses should be thinking about inventory and how to estimate what they need?
Yeah, absolutely. So your best strategy towards a strong and reliable supply chain when it comes to inventory is, like I mentioned in my last, starting with visibility. The more visibility that you can get to with your partners and in your own inbound supply, the more flexibility you have with what you get to present, and how much you get to kind of push some of that forward without having to take on the liability of bringing that inventory inside. So a couple things. Obviously, if you are a B2B business primarily looking to make this shift, or you are one of those retailers that maybe didn't spend as much time online before, absolutely, commerce has a very broad-reaching impact on how you plan. So one of the things that we're starting to see a lot of is really trying to rely on their distributors and some of their supply chain partners that are also looking for ways to increase their business and maintain some of the growth that they've had. And so they're willing to take on maybe a little bit more of that responsibility, which actually allows you to cut out a step in your supply chain, which really allows for some great optimization there. So this is traditionally sort of referred to as dropship or some form of dropship, but it's much more of a commonplace today. So really, kind of looking at that visibility function on that inbound supply chain, because that will be directly tied to how transparent you can be on your outbound supply chain around what you have, when is it available, when can they expect it, because that then is obviously what the consumer cares about.
Just in case there are people in our audience today who are really beginners and new to selling online, can you explain the difference between having something in inventory and drop shipping?
Yeah, that's absolutely. So, when you think about most places, right? You think, okay, I'm going to buy inventory, through a purchase order that I extend. I'm going to receive that inventory into my location, whether that be a 3PL you're working with, whether that's through a physical retail location, and then you're going to put that inventory online and sell it. Well, there is a different way to approach that, where a lot of 3PLs, 4PLs, a lot of vendors are also like all of you on the phone are trying to find ways to maintain a lot of that business growth. So we're starting to see a lot of those vendors agreeing to things like dropship, where you don't actually have to purchase the inventory and bring it in-house before you are allowed to sell it. So you could actually sell it. Generally, you might have it at a bit of a different profit margin, but the vendor will ship it directly to your customer for you. But you're able to do it underneath your brand umbrella with all of your with your branding on it. And case in point, that is what Amazon does. So all of you that are either using Fulfilled by Amazon or some sort of agreement with Amazon, it's a very similar type relationship. But you do not have to be so codependent anymore on Amazon, even though obviously they are still the juggernaut they are. There are a lot of other businesses out there that are willing to take on that type of a relationship than there have been in the past.
Right. And then this makes it easier to plan your inventory if you don't have to keep it in.
Because you don't have to plan for it. So that's the best part about it.
So let's move on to just talk about more tech tools in general around boosting your online sales. I mean, for people who are either just figuring this out or who have done it but are scaling, like there's an entire world of tools out there to them. And I'm sure that it's overwhelming. So just some advice on how to choose. Where do you start?
Sure. So what I would generally say is, usually when a business goes through this sort of transformational change, now is the time to actually look at the tech tools and the software that you're putting in place in order to make that transition. So I think this has been quite the ride for all of us. But what I think we can all sort of expect is all of our businesses are going to be just a little bit different coming out of this than they were going in, hopefully for the better. So software that is both flexible to adapt to various business models, and that starts with a core foundation. So there's, ERP is and can be kind of a bit of a scary term, and that's enterprise resource planning, where a system that tracks, handles your supply chain, tracks your inventory, tracks your financials, tracks your outbound logistics, and having that as a solid foundation. So interesting enough, even though I know we're talking about e-commerce here, but it would be remiss if we didn't talk about the fact that just buying a front end technology and just manually propping it up with a lot of manual processes is great in the beginning. It's just not scalable. So as you're kind of making this transition as a business, now is a great time to start looking at some of those foundational tools and getting that in place, because then you'll be a little bit more future proofed against whatever's going to happen in 2021. Knock on wood, it's not worse than what happened this year. And you're now more adaptable to those types of changes and shifts. Then you really need to look at how kind of how connected, or at least how integrated, are a lot of your, what I like to call, your customer engagement tools. So the way that you're approaching your marketing and your email campaigns being tied directly into your website, and that they actually are two seamless kind of functions of each other. It would be that next step, but it's very difficult to do that if you don't have a solid foundation underneath.
Got it. We are almost ready to bring in our panel of small business owners, Matthew, but I want to ask you one last question.
You bet.
When we talk about scaling your e-commerce operations now. You and I talked about this the other day, and you said something that I thought was really important. And so I was hoping we could talk about it again. You talked about businesses not just planning for what they need now, but planning for what they need on the other side of the pandemic, because to your point that you just made, all of our businesses are evolving and will be different. So just any advice on how to think about, don't just plan for right now.
That's right. What is important right now is speed. Your very business depends on it, right? So we all understand, and of course, anyone that I talk to knew, it's like, look, manual works for now, and that will certainly keep you going. Manual is not scalable, and a lot of these manual processes that you are putting in place are probably still going to exist post-pandemic. So, as we look to the future, realizing what you're doing now, but then also giving yourself a thought on, okay, if this were to stick around, how would I fold that into my business? So one example that I give specifically related to e-commerce is, e-commerce is a very interesting breed in how customer service works, because most customers obviously come to your website not thinking that they're necessarily going to get hands-on contact with you. But when they need help, they want it, and they want it now, and they want somebody who it's not their part-time job to help them through that problem. So be thinking about how you build out or how you look at the support organization to your website so that you have people who are reachable, contactable, have the information, and can respond. Because when e-commerce is not a hobby, those are absolutely functions that are mission critical for any business.
That's great. So thank you so much. So I will be back to you when we go to audience Q&A, and I'm going to introduce our small business panel next. But first, I just want to take a moment to say, first of all, thank you, Matthew and NetSuite. We really appreciate you being here. And I want to thank our sponsors again, because I think I may have had a connectivity issue before. So I just want to make sure we say thank you to our presenting sponsor, who is Chase for Business, as well as our supporting sponsors, FedEx, MetLife, Oracle, NetSuite, Salesforce, and Square. We really do appreciate their support to bring these programs to you. So now I am going to introduce our small business owners. They include a very diverse group of types of businesses. So first we have Bunnie Hilliard, who is the owner of Brave and Kind Books in Atlanta, and I will tell you more about her business when we meet her. We have Chris McCasland, who is founder of City Bonfires in Rockville, Maryland. And we have Vivian Sayward, founder and CEO of Vivacity Sportswear in San Diego. So thank you to each of you. You guys run such different kinds of businesses that I think it's really interesting to talk to you today about e-commerce, because it's so different for each of you. Bunnie, I am going to start with you. Tell us about your business and how it has changed this year.
So thank you so much for having me. The title of my bookstore is Brave and Kind Kids Bookshop. And so we are a neighborhood bookshop kind of nestled in the Oakhurst neighborhood of Decatur in Atlanta, Georgia. And we sell children's books from age 0 on up to young adults. So that's through high school. Also with a small selection that we offer for the adults as well. And so we have gone from, this is a brick and mortar space that we opened at the end of 2018, which means that pretty close to half of the time that we've been open, we have been closed to the public. And so meaning our in-store browsing has been closed since March of this year. And so, we went from riding our bikes and coming on to the neighborhood bookshop and hanging out and hearing a story in store and picking out some fun books to take home and share with your family to not having the ability to do that and trying to recreate that via our web shop. And so we have moved to being completely online, and although we've always had a web presence, because part of what we offer at Brave and Kind Bookshop are also parties or birthday parties and celebrations. We also offer kind of monthly subscriptions, in addition to after-school workshops and classes where kids would come in and learn about writing and illustration and those types of things. And so to recreate that experience via our web shop is kind of what we've moved into doing as we have tackled this pandemic and yeah.
So that's great. I want to just ask you to clarify so that everyone understands that your store being online isn't just like every other bookstore online, because your bookstore has a specific, you're presenting a curated collection of books that are a little different. So can you just be clear about your mission and how you curate your books?
Absolutely. So, we've kind of coined ourselves as a thoughtfully curated selection of diverse and beautiful children's books. And so it is our priority to present a collection that is very diverse and inclusive in its nature. So when you come to our store, you will find books that have main characters that reflect all races and religions and backgrounds and abilities. And that's kind of how we prioritize how we choose the selection for our store, in addition to very artful and classic stories as well.
Yeah, so thanks for explaining that, because I think that's going to be important later when we talk about your e-commerce strategy, because it helps you stand out. So I'll come back to you in a little bit. So I am now going to Chris. Hello, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Chris, you have such a great story. Tell us about your business, which you just started this year as a result of a change in your life during the pandemic. So tell us what happened, what your business does, and how many orders you're filling right now.
So my partner and I, Michael, started City Bonfires, and we started working on this in May and June when things really hit home that my original business wasn't going to be happening anymore. So we started working on this project, and we had our first sale in August 15th, I believe. Now we're up to about 500 orders a day, sending about 1,000 to 1,500 units a day. We sell a portable, reusable mini bonfire. It's about 4 inches around, and you can carry it with you. It's just over a pound. You can take it to the beach. You can put it in your backpack. You can take it anywhere you go. We definitely recommend that you use it outdoors. It's really good for s'mores and getting people together. And that's really my favorite part of the whole business, is how many people we've brought together and to make people happy.
So you invented the product, you launched it in August, you had your first sale.
Yeah.
Right? And then now, tell me how many you think you'll sell in November?
No. We'll probably sell 50,000 of them, I would say, maybe close to 100,000, depending on how Black Friday goes in the next couple of weeks.
Right.
But it has been, it's been a whirlwind and a true blessing. I can't explain it any other way.
Yeah. So for those who don't know what City Bonfire is, later, Google it.
Thank you.
It's pretty cool. Okay. So I will come back to you, Chris. Vivian, hi. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So you own a completely different kind of business, a sportswear company. So tell us, you've been in business for a while. So tell us, how long have you been in business? Tell us about your business, and then how your business model shifted from retail to e-commerce during the pandemic.
Well, I've been in business now for almost over 9 years, actually. And I started in, my background is, I think we've got all these various backgrounds. I was in the corporate world for many years in biotech pharma, but I started playing golf. My husband's an avid golfer, and I couldn't find anything to wear that I liked, that was comfortable, that was fashionable, that made sense in golfers for women. So finally, it was my husband who turned to me one day and said, then do something about it. So it turns out here in San Diego, we have had a garment industry of sorts, a lot of smaller mom and pop shops, contractors that have done clothing for a long time, even after the offshoring of the 90s, where a lot of that manufacturing went overseas. There still has been a small community here. So I kind of tapped into that and created Vivacity Sportswear, which we started in golf. Soon enough realized that my pieces were working really well for women, especially who were traveling, who were going to resorts and on cruise ships and whatnot. So we kind of transitioned into that, and we were really growing into the resort cruise line industries. COVID hit, and that shut down completely. So we did have an online presence, but and we kept it up, but we really didn't focus our energies on that, we were really doing well on the wholesale side. So it was time to shift and pivot, which entrepreneurs tend to do pretty well. And just learning slowly, where is our customer base? Where are they online? And really catering to them, talking to them, and really trying to reach to them. So that's what we've been working on this past year.
Great. Thank you so much. So you were selling in places that people were hit by the pandemic. So all of a sudden, cruise ship gift shops were not your best channel anymore. So we'll talk more about how you did that in a little bit.
Sure.
So Bunnie, I'm coming back to you. Let's just talk a little bit more about the details of how you managed to make the shift technology-wise and inventory-wise from how you were selling before to how you're selling now. Tell us what you did.
So, I mean, essentially, because we did already have an online presence, we already had a website that we were able to use. I wasn't starting from scratch, but I guess my dilemma was, how do it was never my intention to be an online bookstore. The goal was to create a community of like-minded folks to be able to come into this space and see and touch and feel books, and just the people that are really into bookstores. It's about the experience of being inside of a bookstore. And so, immediately, we were very transparent about our moving away from in-store browsing into online browsing, but how could I make it still feel like a bookshop experience? And so, and our space is very bright and airy, and in the middle of the floor, there is a really bright and colorful rainbow rug, which people would comment on very often when they came into the space. And so I immediately started pulling books from the shelves myself and photographing them and putting them onto our website. And so, I have since heard comments where when people would come into the store, oh my gosh, it's the rug from, or it's the carpet from the pictures. It feels just like I'm in the space. And so, because this bookshop, in my mind, in our heart, is an experience that we're trying to create. How could I translate that in-person experience to the online shop? And so taking those photos, putting those on the website, in addition to creating the packaging that also felt warm and personal, and translated from being inside the store into shipping into their homes.
Yeah, I was. You were the person I was talking about who was probably nodding about the shipping times before. Chris, let's talk about, if anybody probably could talk about inventory management, I'm thinking it's you, because you went from, probably having 6 candle fires that you made in your basement to
well, I made them in the garage.
In the garage. So how are you dealing with that?
I'm trying to, we've gotten very lucky with the quantity of orders that we've gotten so far, which will then allow us to use that money to go further. I'm anticipating a lot. First off, Matthew made so many great points there, but one of his points was to see, try to see the future and see what's going to happen during COVID and then after COVID. And we're trying to utilize that and make sure that we have enough supply, going into the future. And I would say that we're overbuying right now, but I would always, I'd rather have inventory and be able to make it and hold it and have it for longer than to come up short, especially in the next 6-7 weeks, however, whatever we have through Christmas and the holidays. So right now we're definitely overbuying. We're overhiring. We're trying to give as many of our friends and families jobs as we can to make as many of these as possible and to fill them as quickly as we can. And another point to Matthew of people expecting, there's a little more leeway with COVID right now. And I don't want to say to use that to your advantage, but just remember it and remember what everybody's going through. And it's not only you and it's not only them, and we're all in it together.
That's a great point. Thank you, Chris. Vivian, I want to talk a little bit more about your story, because I feel like you've had to really rethink the way you're connecting with the customer. I have to imagine that previously the customer was finding you because they were in a location where what you were selling is something they needed and wanted. And so it was a perfect alignment for them and the moment they were in. And now they're not in that moment. So how have you gone about making that direct connection with them, obviously digitally, to make sure your brand is in front of them?
Right. I think it's all everyone's talking about. We're telling our stories here. And I think that's really important. And it's so much harder. I mean, it's clothes. And we as women especially love we're tactile. We love to feel, what we're buying. We want to try it on. We want to, see how it works. So really conveying that digitally is really difficult. So I think there's some touch points there. I think understanding our audience, knowing where they're hanging out online. Be it an older audience, maybe on Facebook or Instagram or even TikTok. So how do we connect there? What are some things that attracted them to our clothing to begin with at that shop, be it at the resort or the cruise ship? And how do we convey that messaging? And that's what we've been doing. We've been really starting to do a lot more on video, really connecting with them, trying to do some touch points from that digitally. Both Facebook and Instagram now have shops. They're really expanding on that side of things. So working, trying to use those tools on hand, so on social media that can help a business like ours get even more, more reach from that standpoint. And that's what we've been trying to do. Really, and focusing on, what people are going through right now. Many people are on conference calls all the time. They're on Zoom. So why not have outfits that look nice, but are comfortable, and they can go throughout their day at home or where it may be for this time of during this pandemic.
Great, thank you. We are very close to switching to the audience Q&A, but I want to give each of the small business owners one more chance to speak. So we're going to do something we had not planned, which is a lightning round. So this means just a short couple word answer. Bunnie, I'm coming to you first. My question is, if there's one thing that you've gone from not being that great at to being really good at during this switch, what is it?
I'd like to say time management. And just really trying to segment my day to make sure I get to touch on all of the things, because I am wearing all of the hats.
Sure, yeah. That's great. What about you, Chris? What was your weakness before that's your strength now?
Admitting to myself that I don't know everything, and there's millions of people out there in the world that are smarter than me and know what to do. This was not my business before. And I'm learning every single day. But I'll tell you that I've learned more on YouTube and reaching out to friends and old colleagues and different people. And just remember that you're not this, you don't know everything. And then there's other people that know more than you, and to take advantage of everything you can.
Great, thanks. And Vivian, what about you? What was your weakness that's your strength now?
I feel more so storytelling, truly.
Great.
Telling our story and reaching out.
That's great. Okay, so I thank you, all three of you, and we will be back to you with audience questions shortly. But first, I would like to reveal the results of our first poll. So first, I'm going to ask the question, which is, how much of your business is currently based in e-commerce? So I would like to see, it's good for us to see where the audience is in this journey themselves. So as we can see, most of the people we are talking to right now are in the beginning of that process. So, I mean, that's a pretty significant number there,
yeah.
Actually. The second poll question I have that I want the audience to answer right now is, moving forward, how much do you expect that percentage to grow? So, I'm sorry. So do you expect to expand your online sales in 2021? And we're going to do the results right now. I'm going to confess to the audience that my Word doc that I was reading to you from disappeared from my screen. So I'm using paper now. So if you see me looking down, that's why. So, yeah, so everybody's growing. And I think that's great. So we know that our audience is very much in line with exactly what we are talking about today. So we're going to move to the audience Q&A now, and I'm going to look at the questions that have been sent to us from the audience, and I am going to throw them out to whomever I think on our panel is the best to answer. Although if you'd like to answer, panelists, you can also just jump in. So the first question, Matthew, I think I'm going to come to you.
Sure.
So this person's asking about the concept of content.
Yeah.
And so this is interesting. I think they're asking, like, when you talk about content, do you mean content like the stuff they're putting on their website, in their email marketing ads, and
Yes.
you know, Vivian's talking about storytelling. Like when we talk about content, that's what I think.
Yeah.
Can you clarify what you think content is?
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean, right? I think when you look at sort of the three-legged stool, if you will, of content being social media, email, and your website, there needs to be a cohesive message there. There needs to be, and not the same piece of collateral or content is right for each of those, those mediums. So, really thinking about the content that you're putting out there, is it appropriate for that? How can it all tie together? That's part of creating this consistent experience that people are used to seeing. So if you're trying to replicate very visual and tactile experience in store, well, you need to have that same translation to the digital realm, where kind of each interaction they have with you, whether I'm looking at it on my phone, my laptop, or on your website, has a very similar feel, is delivering the same message, but one that's appropriate for that particular channel.
Great. This next question I actually want to ask of each of our small business owners. So I'm going to go to Chris first. This is basically the question everybody who's selling online has, which is, how do I get more traffic to my website? So this person says, I tried social media and I'm working on my SEO, but I'm going to come to all three of you. But Chris, why don't you go first, because you seem to be getting a lot of traffic to your website. So
the first part of that answer would be is what I had said previously, was learning on YouTube, learning from the other guys that have the so-called Shopify gurus on how to get these people to your site. But do not hesitate to reach out to a professional and hire a professional advertiser. That's 100% what we did, and it has been one of the best decisions I've ever made, if not the best, in this business, is hiring the right person to get us out there. I tried within Shopify, I tried an app to do the advertising myself. I'm not good at that. That's not what I do. But we found a company that's their professional job, and that's what they do. So my advice there would be to learn as much as you can, hire some people, have some back knowledge of what you learned through YouTube and other channels online for free. And then that way you have a better chance of interviewing and hiring the right person, for your business.
Yeah, actually, so that's really good advice. Don't try to do everything and hire someone who's better than you at the things you're not good at. Bunnie, how about you? How are you driving people to your website?
I mean, I would say, I'm also kind of a defunct blogger and have some social media and kind of influencer kind of background and understanding. And so I would say, certainly as best you can, if you are able to align yourself with people who align with your goals and vision and values, and I'm talking about influencers within the social media realm, to help project your product into their audiences as well. So to create an opportunity to have more touch points via other folks' audiences, if that makes sense.
Yeah, can we just talk about influencers for a second? And then I'm coming to you, Vivian. When people hear the word influencer, they're like, think Kardashian. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not what you mean in this instance. And so I just wonder if you could speak a little bit to the idea that an influencer doesn't have to be famous. They just have to be connected to your target audience.
Absolutely. And so, throughout the last few months, I have And so my target audience obviously are parents or caregivers or people who have connection to children and who want to provide them with books as gifts. And so I have aligned myself with other organizations or other companies who have the same target audience. And we are kind of together presenting to all of our Instagram followers, all social media followers, an opportunity to have some of our products for free. So for me, it would be like maybe a book bundle that may cost $50, but then they're also entering this opportunity to win these other things that they also like because our product offering is aligned in the type of the end user, the target audience. And so we're kind of playing off of each other's followings and audiences to create a bigger audience to share our products, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. Vivian, I want to give you the chance to answer the question about driving traffic to your shop.
Yeah, I mean, I agree both with Chris and Bunnie. I mean, we're definitely on the same page of that. What we've been doing is we've developed just to build on that ambassador program. So what we're doing is we're working with people in our target audience, which are women. I'd say 25 older. We're very active. We have inclusive sizing as well, so we go up to a size 28 in women's, U.S. women. So definitely that kind of embodiment. We're working with others, partnering with others, and this ambassador program that is pretty much a back end. There's some really interesting apps out there right now that can help you have a back end program that kind of tracks everything. So we give them their own little link. They can drive traffic that way, and they can earn maybe a little bit of commission from that, and or do some discount codes or whatnot. Everything to just drive that traffic and start that conversion. And we're already seeing some good results from that.
Great, thank you so much. Matthew, this person says that basically small business budgets are tight. So. So how does a business plan financially for an ERP solution, which maybe first you could tell us what ERP means, and just like how do they estimate the cost? And if you want to talk more broadly, just about technology in general, how do you budget for that?
Yeah. So first off, ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning, and it essentially just is that. It is taking a look at your items, inventory, orders, customers, putting it all onto a single tool to provide that visibility and the business processes of which to get through those particular business processes. Some are highly sophisticated and very automated. Not all are, but just the notion of planning across your various resources. So this is a very interesting question, and I suppose I'm not trying to be tongue in cheek here, but I suppose I will say that in some ways the answer to this is how can you afford not to? At some point in time, your business just will not scale anymore. You are just not capable of manually holding it together. And the cost of hiring one extra person to help you hold it together is already sort of negating the cost of a tool, right? So when you look at a business plan for investing in tools like that, a lot of the times efficiencies and cost savings fund those purchases. So, when you get to a certain point where, you really want to sit down and evaluate this, having a conversation with either a consultant that's used to helping, with these sort of selections, reaching out to a few trusted vendors that have experience in this and giving you some pointers, because a lot of the times we see that, yes, your technology spend in general is going to go up, a fair amount, but your efficiency or what you're getting out of it should very easily offset that cost. So, in planning for that is certainly part of it. I think another element to this to bring in, and I think the question might have had some spin towards funding and access to capital. One of the things that we're very used to doing is working with VC firms and venture capitalists and private equity groups, because most, if not all, will fund or put in an ERP backbone into any business that they end up working with, because they know and they understand that it is essential to the growth of any business, and PE firms are not going to invest in your business if you're not going to grow. So in a lot of ways, ERP is also a very attractive thing for PE companies, in seeing that you have one kind of, instantiates or at least makes an investment in your business a little bit easier.
Right. Okay, so that's an interesting point that I'm not sure everyone would think, that investing in the technology actually makes your company more investable.
And more valuable to them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Vivian, let's talk about staffing for a minute. Have you had to change the way you're staffing your business, and whether your employees need to be doing different jobs than they were doing before?
That's a really great question. Yes, right now, we've had to, so pretty much right when the pandemic hit, we had a lot of orders that were ready to ship. We had already built up a lot of inventory for a lot of these wholesalers. Well, that stopped. So we've been selling through that inventory online. So we've had to switch some of our folks who were dealing more with the production side and transfer them into more of a inventory just more of inventory management, getting into the sales side of things on the back end of the website. So, and it depends obviously on the person. Can they make that switch? Thankfully, we've been lucky and they've been able to. So, giving them the guidance, the support they need. And I think Matthew, once again, with ERP systems and so forth, it's really helpful, especially with a business like ours, where we're designing, manufacturing, sourcing, everything, and putting that all together. So that would have been disastrous had we not had that. And we've been able to use those tools to move forward with our the new e-commerce platform that we're definitely focused on now.
Right.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Bunnie, I want to combine two questions here for you. This person says they have a brand new skincare line and they're struggling. They don't have a lot of social followers. They don't have a lot of traffic coming to their site. And then we have a separate question that just talks about, like, how do you promote yourself on a small budget? And I'm coming to you with this question because your example of using the rug, I think, is symbolic of something bigger in terms of the idea that you found a really simple way to transform your digital marketing to feel like the real experience of being in your store physically. So could you talk a little bit about that, how you're just very organically marketing yourself, your business?
Right. And so, as our following began to grow over the last few months, I did really struggle with internally with trying to continue to maintain what our true mission is, which is to diversify bookshelves across, in our neighborhoods initially, and now across the country, thankfully. And so to try to maintain that neighborhood bookshop, very personal feel that you get when you come into the bookstore, as we promoted ourselves online to continue to stay very true to what our mission was and what we were sharing and how we were sharing it. Additionally, I also find that people are really drawn to my personal connection. And so, I hesitate to hand off social media to someone else because I also feel like people are continuing to come because the bookstore, it has a voice of its own. And so to show my face and to have that personal connection, I feel like also continues to drive people. So it's not just a continual product driven, slideshow of what you see when you come into the store, but feeling like you're searching through the shelves, feeling like you're validating yourself as you see these images that reflect your family values and the things that you feel are important to share with your family through reading materials and the other products that we share. And so I don't know if I answered the question, but
Yes, you did. And it's so interesting. I think you are so clear about what your business's mission is. You said diversify bookshelves. I've never heard a mission statement that was so short, but so crystal clear about what you're trying to do. And I have to think that that is part of why what you're doing is resonating on social, because there is like no confusion about what you are and do. So, you know, to anyone like the skincare product person, I would say emulating you in that way by being so crystal clear about what your business does and what problem it's trying to solve or inspire is really key. Chris, I have a question here that was written specifically for you. I knew that your business story was going to really interest people. So can you just give us a little bit more detail? Like, how long did it take you to create your product? Like, did you do that yourselves? Did you do it in your garage? And then like kind of how long was that whole process?
Sure. Yeah, it was really short. We started, prototype making these in June, and maybe a bit of it into July. We got our final prototype of it, and we started making them in my garage. I think I said we had our first sale on August 15th. We started, ramping up the Facebook ads from $20 a day to $50 a day to 80 to 100 and so on to wherever we are now. But that it really helps. My wonderful wife got us on the local news, has put us in some other, some free channels that we were able to take advantage of. And it's really exploded. We were in our garage for a couple months. As of about 3 weeks ago, we moved to a warehouse now where we have seven or eight full-time employees that we're working with, a lot of them being my family and helping us. So that's another thing, is to take advantage of as many people that are willing to help you as you can. And now we're at 1,000 to 1,500 of these a day. So anything is possible. I did not think that I would be being interviewed on November 17th or 18th, whatever today is, about this growth that we've had, but it's unbelievable, and anybody can do it. It's just learning and putting your best foot forward and doing the best you can.
Thank you. And I just want to, we're running out of time, but I did want to ask you, a big part of your business, which we didn't say to the audience, is you're selling direct to customers, but then you have all these B2B customers that are like seeing what a great gift this would be like for their employees or their clients. So can you just tell me, how has that broken down, B2C versus B2B?
Percentage wise, I'd say maybe 90 B2C and 10 B2B. But the orders that we get for the B2B are, could be 500, 1,000.
Right.
And we're doing a really good job of, this is my wife's department here, I shouldn't take the credit, but we're doing a really good job of getting out to these businesses, answering all their emails, all their questions, lots and lots of questions from these guys about, they're perfectionists. They want to send the perfect gift. And, we are a small business, so they're putting a lot of trust in us. So it's very important. I know that one of us said earlier that how quick it is to respond to somebody in the customer service is very, very important. I would definitely recommend getting somebody to help you with that. But it's been incredible about the businesses giving these out as gifts. And it's really neat working with major companies that I didn't ever think that we'd work with before.
I was just going to say that. Did you want to mention any of the names of the companies?
I don't know if they want,
Well, I will just say, because we talked about this the other day, that they're very big companies. So you've been noticed by
yeah, like JetBlue, big nationwide, Fortune.
I share that because I think your story is just so amazing, this growth so quickly. And so fact that it's these major companies that love this idea is just so interesting. Okay, I'm coming to Vivian, because we're running out of time, so I'm going to start talking faster. Vivian, do you have advice for, first of all, the fact that you started a fashion line, which is like everyone's dream, and you did that, just because you were really interested in doing that. It's so interesting. But what's your best advice for a company that was previously mostly selling wholesale and now is selling much more direct to the customer?
Yeah, I think it's first and foremost, I mean, it's so wonderful. Everyone's had all these glimpses, like Bunnie had her, she knows her target audience. And I think it's really defining that. Where are they hanging out? Where are they in social media? Understanding that mission and continuing that mission. That mission does not change. That vision does not change, no matter what platform. It's solid if that's the case. and really doing the outreach, really testing. It takes time. Just because you're throwing up some Facebook ads where you think the audience is that does not equate into an instant audience right away. I mean, so it's going to take a little bit of time. I think asking, partnering, talking to people, reaching out in so many different instances and asking for help, I think it's really important. And really building that out.
Thank you. Thanks, Vivian. We are just about out of time. Matthew, I am coming back to you for the last word. We saw during our poll that actually a huge part of our audience today is really just starting with this. What is your best, just really easy, simple, best advice for people who really are just embracing e-commerce?
Yeah, I think let's definitely talk about that, because one thing is very clear from the panel today, right? All three of them have found a need that was needed in their space, and they filled it, right? I mean, at the very beginning of anything, that is core. So, it becomes a little bit more organic in the way that you put together your content and your message, and getting it out there. So, kind of really taking a look at kind of what it is that you're trying to put out into the world, and make sure that it is something that makes sense, resonates, and you feel fills the need that's out there. And that will absolutely gravitate folks over to you faster than not. Doesn't mean that it wouldn't otherwise, but certainly that is a way when you can align those two. So I would definitely say just taking that look at yourself and make sure that you're understanding the message that you're trying to put out there, and the more authentic you can be and the need that you're trying to fill, the more that it will resonate.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Matthew. I thank all of you, Bunnie, Chris, and Vivian, for joining us. It was really my pleasure to hear your stories, and I'm sure the audience feels the same way. So I just want to thank our sponsors again, our presenting sponsor, Chase for Business, as well as our supporting sponsors, FedEx, MetLife, Oracle, NetSuite, Salesforce, and Square. And most of all, to our audience, thank you so much for joining me today. Please join us for our next Code Blueprint, which will be on Thursday, December 3rd at noon Eastern Time. And we will be talking about how you can defend your business from cyber threats. Mark your calendars for that date. And in the meantime, don't forget to check out these helpful links at the bottom of the page so you can get more information. So to everyone, have a safe holiday, and we will see you on December 3rd. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.